Top 10 rarest titles in WoW. Before we watch this video, as a chat, what do you guys think the top 10 rarest titles are in WoW? Wouldn't it just be 10 rank 1 titles? Wouldn't that just be it? I mean, okay, obviously there's the mount and title you get for opening the gates. What's it called? World first Scarab Lord. Yeah, obviously there's Scarab Lord. What else is a rare title? Undying, Immortal, Insane, Bloodsteel Admiral. It's gotta just be the rank 1 titles, like all 10 of them, right? Scarab Lord and then rank 1 titles. Let's take a look though.
A player's title, you can tell right away if they are world, PvE, or PvP oriented. It shows their prestige in a very specific area and oftentimes delivers the highest prestige for a single person in that category. In this list, we're going to go over some of the rarest titles that you can come across in all of WoW. Starting us off at number 10, we have the Black Harvest title. This title was previously obtainable during Mist of Pandaria and only from patch 5.2 to the very beginning of Warlord to Draenor.
What is
If you were a Warlock player when this title was obtainable, you may recognize it. But to the uninformed player, this title was awarded to Warlocks who completed the special Green Fire scenario during Mist of Pandaria.
That was actually
This scenario was created exclusively for Warlocks, and to begin the quest chain for the Green Fire...
Dude, everyone in the chat says, I have that, I have that, I have that. Like, we're talking about the top 10 rarest titles ever in the game, and multiple people in the chat have it. There's no way it's that rare. J5, thanks for the Twitch Prime. Welcome in. Enjoy your lack of ads. It was the Green Fire Lock quest, which was actually a cool quest, by the way. I was really happy they added that.
You would need to loot the Sealed Tome of the Lost Legion. This tome would drop from a large assortment of rare NPCs along the Isle of Thunder at complete random.
So it's not that rare.
It was pretty rare to come across, but wasn't actually bind and pick up if you were to come across it, as the tooltip text implies. You had to have a Warlock character bind it to themselves first with a Hellstone to start the quest chain, so you could mail it to your characters, friends, or even sell the auction house for a considerable amount of gold. Once you obtained the tome and started the quest chain, however, you would eventually arrive at Black Temple. It would place your character into a scenario instance with a single boss and 0 trash mobs. At the time, this boss was very challenging to players and could be viewed as a sort of introduction to the future Mage Tower of WoW.
I wish there was more stuff like this in WoW. This might be a little controversial, but I think some of the solo PvE content in WoW is some of the best content ever. Mage Tower, stuff like this. Yesterday we were like doing solo BFD raids like with Savix and hardcore in itself of like the SSF hardcore challenge, right? I feel like solo PvE content is so good. So good.
What it basically means is that Kenrithad Ebonlock, the boss in question, was designed like a raid boss to be soloed by a singular Warlock character. It required an almost perfect master of the Warlock class during Mist of Pandaria's inception, utilizing their demonic gateway, DPS skills, pet management, CC abilities, and more to a strong degree. It also, obviously, was a heavy gear check to the Warlock. So even if you really understood the class, you needed to have the Warlock as geared to the teeth as possible to have.
For this quest, couldn't you like have another Warlock do it for you though? Or something? I remember people like buying and selling Green Fire. Like another, oh, you couldn't? You had to solo it? Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty cool then. That's pretty cool if you had to solo it. I don't know why I was thinking that.
Have a better shot. Upon defeating Kenrithad, the Morlock would receive the Codex of Xerath passive ability in their spell journal. What this does is essentially turn any existing fire spell in the Warlock's arsenal, primarily Destruction Warlock, into a Fel Fire appearance rather than the usual orange and red. It also would make a Demonology Warlock's demon form from Metamorphosis into a green color rather than the usual purple. But this, like the title, Metamorphosis, was removed. Basically, if it was fire, it was now green, including the Dread and Felsteed class mounts. It was really only Affliction that didn't get much love from this questline, and the removal of Metamorphosis, it seems only the Destruction Warlocks are winning. Regardless, you can still do this questline if you want it for your character, and you can go back and turn off the Green Fire whenever you so choose also. However, this of the Black Harvest title was awarded to Warlock players who specifically killed Kenrithad during Mist of Pandaria when it was the current expansion. If you didn't play when Mist of Pandaria was current, or just weren't able to bring down Kenrithad at the time, this achievement is all but null to you now.
Bro, I feel like there's no way this is top 10 rarest title. There's no way. Because like, yeah, like the amount of Warlocks that had this, it must have been at least hundreds, like thousands, right? Like thousands of people have this title, which means it's not that rare.
Given to players via the Breaker of the Black Harvest achievement. Basically, if you were an active Warlock in Mist of Pandaria, chances are you have this achievement.
Right.
Even then, not many actually received it, as only 2% of all players have the title. This also needs to consider that while the title is account-wide, it may only be used by Warlock players. Additionally, not everyone plays Warlock, so they may have never known this title actually exists in the first place. Definitely not the most prestigious of titles in WoW, but certainly among the rarest. And at number 9, we have the Immortal and the Undying. These titles were added in Wrath of the Lich King Garrett Xaryu rather than its vanilla counterpart it replaced. It was one of the very first achievement title rewards in all of WoW, as Wrath itself introduced achievements as a whole. Achievements were added into WoW to help.
How many people have rank 1 titles? So basically every season there's a certain number of people that get it. It's a percentage. So 0.1% of the ladder gets it. If there's a lot of people playing, 0.1% of the ladder is much larger. If there's fewer, then it's fewer. One of the rarest rank 1 titles of all time, it was like top 60 players that got it. I believe on Horde, and then another like 50, 60 on Alliance, so like around a little over 100. So a little over 100 players in the game have that title. Ever. It was one time, 100 players in the entire game. So you compare that to a title that we just like looked at, where thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 players have a title. I mean, it's not even close.
Help give the old world a bigger reason to travel back and complete its activities for special rewards. This isn't to say the current expansion is devoid of any of these rewards as well, of course. Essentially, what you had to do for these achievements was to zone into Naxxramas' raid and defeat all 15 boss encounters without a single death in your raid occurring. It was safe to die in trash mobs, but even if one person perished during Kel'Thuz's Odd, you failed. The Undying was a reward for completing Naxxramas on 10-man mode, as normal and heroic raiding hadn't been a thing yet, and was instead divided based on the amount of people that were present. With 10 people, both the gear and difficulty of the raid was scaled down. For the Immortal, you would need to complete the raid with 0 deaths on 25-man, however. It was very stressful, and players have seen a re-emergence of the stress in the Wrath of the Lich King Classic, where players could journey back into Naxxramas like it was in the days of old. Though, this entry is speaking on the rarity of titles in retail WoW. These titles would be removed from the game upon the release of the Cataclysm expansion. This means that while Naxxramas was the very first raid of the expansion, it could be obtained all the way up until Ruby Sanctum and Icecrown Citadel, massively outscaling the previous gear requirements. Completing the raid following the given circumstances would award achievements of the titles under the same name, allowing you to show off your fearlessness in the face of the Scourge. Like mentioned though, these titles were only obtainable during Wrath. Even with the fact you could grossly outgear the content to obtain these achievements, players just still weren't that good at the game. There was much less resources.
I mean, getting this back in the day was probably pretty hard. I mean, I remember even in Wrath trying to get it, like the start of Wrath, back in, what was it, 2022 or something, 2021 maybe, like on the relaunch, and it was still not super easy to get it. I mean, you could get it, but like back in the day, it was probably like, bro, someone's gonna mess up, or like Jimmy is gonna freaking disconnect again because his dad's gonna pull the power plug because he's on too late and he's not supposed to be raiding or something, like, you know what I mean?
For guides at their disposal, and certainly less add-ons to improve their function. Nowadays, you have tons of weak ores that tell you the perfect timing of anything boss related. This is shown around the fact that while Wrath was the peak of WoW subscribers, the Undying has a collection rate of 5%, and the Immortal at 1.2%. You'd imagine it'd be a bit higher considering raiding was the endgame of WoW, and there wasn't much else to do besides completing achievements anyway. It also has to be considered that a lot of people have come to play WoW since it was removed, making the number appear lower than it may have actually been back in Wrath. Regardless, it's one of the rarest titles to come across in WoW, and if you spot someone with it, you can rest assured they were pretty hardcore back in the Wrath era. And at number 8, we have the Warlord of Draenor. This title is awarded to players who complete the achievement of the exact same name. Essentially, what you had to do was complete every single Nemesis quest at the Gladiator Sanctum within your garrison. Garrisons were Blizzard's attempt to create player housing, and while they may have failed or not, players could decide what buildings inhabited the garrisons.
Oh my gosh, this expansion,
one of these buildings
bro.
was the Gladiator Sanctum, which essentially allows you to begin special PvP-only quest achievements. Among these are the Nemesis titles, which in their own right are really rare as well. These quests were basically killing 500 of a certain race within the Ashran Epic Battleground or open world in Draenor. So if you wanted the Butcher title, you needed to kill 500 Tauren characters. You could also only work on one quest at a time, so you can't actively farm the Undead and Orc title at the same time. Essentially, you would need to kill 3,500 kills of the opposing faction if you were insanely blessed with kills or had friends that could help you farm them out. Seeing as you may need 500 kills of a certain race, and they can only be obtained within Ashran, if you have no help, it could take you literally months just for this process alone. Artificially, there just simply is more human characters made in WoW than a gnome, for example. So when you begin working on the gnome being title for the Warlord of Draenor title, you're going to be finding much less gnomes in the enemy team to earn your credit, possibly only earning a few dozen or so every Ashran run. This achievement was also made before the introduction of allied races, which do not count whatsoever for the Nemesis title. So for the Dwarf Stalker title, killing a Dark Iron Dwarf will not yield you any credit. You can, however, speed up the process by working on the quest with multiple people. If everyone in your group has the same Nemesis quests, like Dwarf Stalker, every kill of a dwarf receives an additional credit based on the number of players in your group on the quest to a maximum of 5 credit per kill. Now, with all that understood, you have to do it for every race of the opposite faction. Thankfully, not both factions. Simultaneously, you'll be earning Broken Bones, which are essential to upgrading your Sanctum and completing the Nemesis quest in question.
After
you've completed this, you still need to complete the Fight, Kill, Salute quest. This quest is given to players with a level 3 Gladiator Sanctum and allows them to queue for the unique Highball Coliseum PvP instance.
Oh, bro, I forgot about the Coliseum. I remember when this came out, I was actually like really stoked. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was kind of like Last Man Standing, wasn't it? Like it teleported like 20 or 50 players here or something, and then it was a free-for-all, and whoever didn't die, whoever lived like the longest won. Yeah, it was actually kind of cool.
This instance pits yourself and 14 other players into a free-for-all arena
15.
Where the last man standing wins. The Fight, Kill, Salute quest requires you to have killed 100 players in this instance, but also may autocomplete if you actually manage to win a run. The problem with this, however, is that no one actually queues for this mode, as it can only be done by returning to your garrison and queuing for it. As of Dragonflight, you must have 15 people of the same faction and region as you with a level 3 garrison and a Gladiator Sanctum on 2 characters per person. If you win the arena, you will not be able to re-queue for another week, meaning to help the others in the farm, you will need the mentioned second character that intentionally loses over and over for the group. Jeez. So in order to effectively meet the final criteria of this title, you need 14 other willing players completely willing to commit with you.
So back in the day, this probably wasn't as bad, but now it's like antiquated, right?
Perform high communication. Once this is all done, you will earn the Warlord of Draenor title for your character. It's just a stupidly long grind of PvP and surprisingly can still be obtained in WoW. But you can see the annoyance of this title and why only 1.6% of players would have it 10 years after its addition.
Wow.
At least while you farm it, you're getting lots of other rare titles along the way, including the Lord/Lady of War. And at number 7, we have the High Warlord and Grand Marshal titles.
Yeah, makes sense.
These titles, while incredibly famous during Classic and Vanilla WoW, were re-added into WoW during Cataclysm with no actual changes to their display. The only thing that changed was the criteria to receive the titles for your characters. To obtain the titles, now you need a rating of 2400 or above in rated battlegrounds. It cannot be achieved in arenas of any sort and only in rated battlegrounds. It may be compared that in 3v3 arenas, a 2400 rating is considered Gladiator and above. So it's basically that, but in the 10 versus 10 format of Battlegrounds. Originally, Vanilla WoW, you had to hit rank 14 in the existing honor point system. This basically derived an absolutely massive grind of killing players in the open world and completing Battlegrounds. Every week, your rank points would go down by 20%, meaning basically 20% of your progress just got lost. So you need to get it back as fast as possible every week to ensure you never fall behind.
That's crazy.
Upon hitting the maximum rank after hundreds of hours, you would receive the Grand Marshal tile for Alliance and High Warlord for Horde permanently. So at least once you did it once back in the day, you never had to do it again. In modern WoW though, it's hitting 2400 in RBGs, which can be pretty difficult nowadays. A big reason for this is not many people queue into RBGs anymore, and even then you need to hit a much higher rank than available to the average person. Essentially, a player with this was either insanely dedicated back in the day, or plays a lot of RBGs. And at number 6, we have the Trainer title.
What was the
in Mists of
percentage on that
Pandaria,
one?
Blizzard would introduce a new system into players of form of pet battles. This is a turn-based Pokemon-inspired system where you take the many little critters of WoW and make them fight against one another. It came with its own leveling system, creature types, and creature counters based on its type. It also had a PvP mode that you can queue into that basically just places you into a 1v1 battle against a random player of probably equal skill and level as you. For the Trainer title, you would need to win a massive 1000 PvP pet battles with a team.
Do you guys remember there was like a leveling glitch or leveling bug for a while where you could get experience for pet battles, and it was like the quickest way to level by just flying around and pet battling and leveling up that way? And then they ended up patching it like 2 weeks later or something. Yeah. It's still there. Yeah, but no, it was like the quickest way, bro. Like if you did a pet battle, it was like half a level or something. You guys remember that? It was like crazy OP, then they nerfed it. And anyway, that was the last time I pet battled. Because I did that to try to get some more characters to grind rank 1 with. Yeah.
Team of level 25 pets. This is rewarded via the Deadly Pet Brawler achievement. The problem with this grind is that basically no one actually interacts with the PvP aspect of pet battles, if they mess with pet battles at all. It's not a forgotten system from Blizzard whatsoever, as even in Dragonflight and War Within, it continues to be iterated upon by Blizzard, showing people do continue to use it. It's certainly a system designed for the most casual or actually devoted of WoW, as it's super easy to understand and not difficult to get involved with. The queue times for PvP pet battles can be pretty lengthy, as it's just generally not interacted with. You can find the button to queue for these brawls at the bottom right corner of your pet journal
I didn't even know you could do that.
It could be a good few minutes or more for just one person to find you, and then you have to actually win the pet battle. The person you're facing against might just have a better pet battle team or get a tad bit luckier than you by landing a critical hit, for example. Basically, just have a maxed out team of battle.
I like how he doesn't mention skill at all. It's either luck or better team. There's no skill here, man. Like,
pets and win 1,000 fights with them. Anyone with this title can definitely be assumed to have a great love for little critter companions, honestly, as only 0.3% of players have this title.
Holy crap!
Companions,
That's a rare
and
title.
then by land only 0.
What?
Like your point battle. Companions being a critter companions to be assumed.
That's wild.
1,000 fights with.
Is it a sponsor that's like glitching out the video? Most replayed? Bro, that's actually a 5-head sponsor because it makes you think the video's lagging. Follow Glitch Stars my new corp. That's really interesting. So he glitches out his own video. Huh.
And at number 5, we have the Con title added in patch 5.2 of Mist of Pandaria. This title will be rewarded upon completing its namesake achievement, a massive PvP meta achievement that yields a completion rate amongst all WoW players at 0.3%. In order to complete this achievement, you must earn the Master of Battleground achievement for Battle for Gilneas, Twin Peaks, Temple of Kantmogu, Island of Conquest, and Silver Shard Mines. For each battleground, you must win 100 of each of them, and after this, it branches into the uniqueness of each battleground. With a Battle for Gilneas, you must capture 50 total flags, defend 2 bases in a single battle, win the battleground after being down 500 resources from the enemy, win in under 6 minutes, capture and defend a base in a single run, gas under the double rainbow, win the enemy faction scoring 0 points, capture 2 bases in a single run, defend 10 bases, win 10 battles for Gilneas while controlling all 3 flags, win by 100 points or less, and get 10 honorable kills at each base in a single battle. And this is just for the Battle for Gilneas, and completing these achievements can already be considered basically impossible by the vast majority of players, and for the most part, you'd be right. The difficulty aspect in these runs can range from generally just telling uninformed players how to play the game, others not aiming for your goals, and a limit of 5 players to queue with an unrated PvP.
Jeez.
You can technically queue against an enemy faction that purposefully allows you to farm these achievements and earn every one title, but the portion that blocks this from happening is the Master of Isle of Conquest achievement, which can only be queued for and unrated, and it's a 40v40 battleground. This means even with a group of 5, you must hope that the other 35 on your team are up to par and can do what needs to be done. You must also completely stomp the enemy faction, as there is no world where they just let you win. At least not all 40 of them. This achievement is incredibly difficult, and you will surely be on it for a great amount of time, even when truly committing to the farm. If you have this achievement, you either got insanely lucky or had the craziest amount of help imaginable to complete things like this. So anyone with it must really love PvP or just really wanted to show this title off. And at number 4, we have the Famed Slayers title. These titles are specific to each corresponding seasons they're around and change for each current end boss of a raid tier. For example, if Yggdrasil is the current raid tier and you meet the requirements for this title, it will read as Famed Slayer of Fyrak. Every raid tier, there's a Hall of Fame that Blizzard puts out. This essentially immortalizes the first 200 guilds to down a raid's end boss in Mythic difficulty. Mythic raiding is undoubtedly one of the hardest
pieces. Wait, is this a thing for every boss always? Famed Slayer of? How? I didn't even know this was a thing. Yeah? Wait, so for every Mythic difficulty, on a last boss, you get a title called Famed Slayer. It's basically like a rank 1 title, right? And if you get in the top 200 guilds to clear it, you get like your rank 1. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. I actually like that. That's a good idea. I had no idea this even existed though.
Of content in all of WoW. and requires some of the most insane coordination and game sense that many of the competitive games never even come close to. Not only is getting cutting edge in it.
So how many people? It's top 200 guilds and there's 20 players in every guild, right? Usually guilds do 20-man rating, right? Or 25, 20, 25? We're busting out the old calculator here. So for every boss, it's 20. So it's gonna be 4,000 people get this every tier. So it's pretty rare, but it's not like that rare. It's pretty rare.
Itself an already difficult task, a reward for killing a mythic end boss before the next tier. Being amongst the first 200 guilds to do so is an insane feat of strength. These guilds are typically amongst some of the best PvE players in the entire world, and are fighting the boss before it starts to receive nerfs. Many times, Blizzard will hold off on nerfing the last boss too much to really separate the players from Hall of Fame from the more casual mythic raiders. Once the kill is obtained, the entire guild is rewarded with the achievement corresponding to the current raid tier. So this means that even if you did not participate actively with the kill the boss, you can still use the title technically. You do still need to actually kill the boss and receive the cutting edge version of their achievement to then be allowed to use the Hall of Fame title. But if a guild gets a placement amongst the Hall of Fame, they will be awarded the title. However, if you leave the guild for whatever reason, you will not keep it. This is made to combat guilds potentially trying to sell titles to people who don't actually earn the prestige behind it. If you were to say only 20 people per guild get the title, however, as mythic rating is specific to 20 players at a time, then only 4,000 people per tier would receive the special Slayer titles. Even if only 1 million people actively play WoW still, only 4,000 people per tier is a crazy low number compared to everything else. Either way, if you see a famed Slayer of Sarkareth Argus, or really any end boss, you know for sure that player is amongst some of the best raiders during that era of WoW, and continues to prevail with their guild, as leaving the guild will remove the title. And at number 3, we have rank 1 titles. Similar to every tier of WoW, there is a new season that follows it. These seasons usually come in the form of new dungeon rotations for Mythic Plus and a reset of PvP rating across the board. When these seasons complete, however, the very best or the rank 1 players will receive special titles specific to their accomplishment. To obtain these, you literally had to be within the top 0.1% of all players in rating. This just means you had the highest rating in your region and that you were ahead of 99.9% of all the player base with it. This rule is applied to both Mythic Plus and PvP, as they share very similar criteria at the end of a season. These titles
Mythic Plus has a 0.1% title in it? Is that true? How do I not know this? Yes? The hero titles. Wait, 0.1% Mythic Plus title.
Change depending on the theme of the season. As an example of this, in Season 3 of Dragonflight, they rewarded Mythic Plus players with the Dreaming Hero titles to permanently keep. While you can obtain the Dreaming alone, the Hero portion is given to rank 1 players. For this same season, PvP players would receive the Verdant Gladiator title for 3 of the arenas, and Verdant Legend for Solo Shuffle.
Interesting.
This number.
When was this added? Was this added in Dragonflight? Oh, it started in Shadowlands? Okay, that's interesting. You know, it's also interesting. There's probably so many more people that play it. So like for arena, it's 0.1%, right? Say it's like top 100 for arena, which is, would that mean like 100,000 people play? No. Wait, what? 0.01 is 0.1%, right? How many people would actually play then? 10? Huh? There's no way there's only 10,000 players to play WoW Arena. How is this math not mathing, chat? You're missing a 0? 0.01. Oh, it's 0.001. Okay, so yeah, so like in some of the smaller seasons, it's like 100,000 people, and you're right, it's 0.001 because it's. Is that right? Okay, it is 0.00. Okay, so yeah, that would make sense. Anyway, for Mythic Plus, it's not like 100,000 people playing in a season for Mythic Plus, right? It's probably more like 5 times that. It's like 500,000 or maybe more. So it maybe like 750,000. So when you do the math there, it's like top 750 people. Someone that Mythic Plus, tell me the math on this. How many people actually get the rank 1 Mythic Plus? It's for sure more. It's even more than 750. It's way more. Holy crap. How many? Do you guys know? For like the last season, for example, off the top of your head, for people that play at retail. Oh, it's per class, per spec. Oh my gosh. It's over 1,000. This season was about 900. Okay, anyway. So in that sense, the rank 1 titles for PvP are probably about 10 times more rare, but just because 10 times less people play. It's because it's a percentage-based title. Just to give credence to this video, all right? They're very different in that regard, all right?
Is never the exact same, and depending on the cutoff of actual rating, as some teams have tied scores, may increase or decrease the amount of people who get the titles. So not only did you have to play when the season was current, you had to literally be the very best in the entire genre of the game to obtain these titles. On average, only about 50 to 100 players per region get these titles per category at a time. So just seeing them with it is one of the factors in its rarity. To help give some further perspective, the Obsidian Gladiator title from Season 2 Dragonflight has a collection rate of 0.0057% amongst all known accounts. The tradition of these seasons started all the way back in the Burning Crusade, with the Vengeful Gladiator title only being shared amongst the 0.0021% of WoW players.
Okay, so here is like an interesting distinction. We've talked about this before on stream, but the way it worked back in the day is there was battle groups. There was, I believe, 13 battle groups. The top 1 player of the battle group would get the title. So I know what you're thinking. Wow, so it was rarer in the past, right? The top 1 would get the title. That's it. The difference is, back in the day, it was the top 1 of, there was 2v2, top 1, 3v3, top 1, and 5v5, top 1. Nowadays, it's only 3v3. So you're like, okay, well, it's still 3 different brackets instead of 1. Well, it goes more. There was 13 battle groups back then. It was the top 1 in each battle group. I believe there was 13. Maybe it was like 12 or something. 12, 14, 13, something like that. I think it was 13. That number seems to stick. It's probably something like that. Okay, so now it's 13 times each bracket. So you're like, okay, well, it's 13 times 3 then, right? You get 39 people with rank 1, right? 39 rank 1 titles. No, it's 13. In 5s, it would be 5 people sharing a title. In 3s, it would be 3 people sharing a title. In 2s, it would be 2 people sharing a title. So it's like, okay, so 5 plus 3 plus 2, that would be 10 rank 1 titles per battle group, and there's 13 battle groups. So that's 130 rank 1 titles, right? It's like, okay, well, that's not as rare, but it's like, that's also not it. You could have up to 10 people on a 5v5 roster. You could have up to 6 people in a 3v3 roster and up to 4 in a 2v2 roster. And the majority of teams had closer to the high amount because they wanted to share rank 1 titles with their friends and more people that actually were really good. So on average, you could probably more take like 8 people from a 5s team. You could take, say, 5, like, let's take the median, like 5 people from a 3s team and 3 people from a 2s team. So it's really 16 players times 13 battle groups. So 208 rank 1s every season. These are obviously estimates. So it's like, okay, well, that's a little less rare then for sure. But that's not all. There's also ties. So a lot of the times people in the past with the OG system would tie at the rank 1 spot. So say there was a team that had 10 players on it and then a tied team with another 10 players on it. So it could be anywhere between 3 and 6 plus 3 and 6 plus 2 and 4 because there was also ties. So, and this happened all the time on every BG, not, you know, so that would actually make the estimation go quite a bit higher because a lot of the times it would be like 10 players would get it in 5s, tied with another 10 to get in 5s. So on that one battle group in that one bracket, 20 players would get the one title. Anyway, so if you increase the estimation to kind of maybe just like the high end of these numbers, so like 10, 6, and 4, it would probably be something like 20 players got the rank 1 titles per battle group times 13 battle groups. You have about 260 players getting the rank 1 titles back in the day. So by my estimation, the old school rank 1 titles were actually a lot more common than the new ones. The new ones, it depends every season based on the number of people playing, but it's usually around 50 to like 150 rank 1s in the new rank 1 title system that was implemented in the second half of Mist of Pandaria. Anyway, I've thought a lot about this because someone like 6 months ago was like, well, what's the rarest title in the game? And it's like, well, it's probably rank 1 titles because only like a certain amount of people get them. And then I think it was Peo was like, oh, well, the old ones are even rarer. And I was like, you might think that, but it's actually not the case at all. They're actually like a lot more common. Anyway, these numbers aren't accurate because basically the achievements were added after people logged in. So going back to the video, it's like, well, these are rare. Look at the numbers. These numbers aren't accurate because the people who have the titles haven't logged in yet for it to show. Anyway, boom. There it is.
There's in the world. The Mythic Plus and Solo Shuffle Edition.
Oh, wait, there's more. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
Weren't added until very recently in WoW. So the rank 1 title of 3v3 players has been a long known standstill. These guys mean the absolute business when it comes to pushing WoW to its limits. And at number 2, we have the Realm First titles. Similar to our entry about the Immortal, this entry derives solely from Wrath of the Lich King and its introduction to achievements.
I didn't even think about these. Holy crap.
How to obtain these achievements was pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you would need to be part of a raid group that enters a raid instance and be the first in your entire server to bring it down. An example of this comes from Death's Demise achievement. You had to be part of the group of 25 players only that brought down the infamous Yogg-Saron with 0 lights, also known as without the assistance of the keepers. If you happen to be in one of these groups, you definitely were playing night and day like crazy, as these titles would immediately retire per server if you were not quick enough. You could definitely be worthy of the title, but lose to another guild in record time and would become legitimately impossible to obtain something like Death's Demise again. So only 25 people per server actually obtained the titles per raid in Wrath of the Lich King until the title reward format was left behind in Icecrown Citadel. You still would receive—
How many realms are there? Quick math. It's like 25 players per realm. How many realms are there? Like 100-ish? 200-ish? 150? I actually don't even know. Not every realm got the kill at all through the whole expansion? A lot back then? Yeah, I don't know, like 150. So there's still like a couple thousand maybe of these titles. That's still pretty rare.
Receive the achievements saying you took part in the Realm First Kill the Lich King and every boss onwards, but no longer did they give you titles for bragging rights. So only for a very select few raids did this format actually exist, and the last obtainable one was Grand Crusader for completing the Trial of the Grand Crusader raid with 0 wipes on a Barak and 25 mana. While these achievements do technically have a higher obtain rate than a large majority of rank 1 titles from the previous entry, they also were only obtainable during a single expansion. It wasn't even for a full expansion at that. Plus, since Wrath of the Lich King was considered the peak of WoW, a lot of players who would have gotten these titles may have quit the game entirely by now. At least the rank 1 players continue to be made rather than being completely extinct outside of the previous season. There's just genuinely no way to get something like Realm First Magic Seeker ever again unless you were just really cracked at the game in the Wrath era. All you need to understand is that for every realm you see when logging into WoW, there are only 25 people with titles from this entry, and many of them may not even be playing the game anymore. And closing us off, we have this Scarab Lord title from Vanilla WoW at number
Scarab
1.
Lord, yeah.
Like almost any entry on this list, the title corresponding to the entry has been removed, and that's essentially what makes them so rare. This title, while in the same boat, has this effect doubled. If you're unfamiliar with the Scarab Lord grind, you'll be set onto a 32 quest long chain. The first couple of these quests are relatively simple, but it isn't until the Path of Righteousness begins that it really begins to become absurd. This is the portion that requires you to kill any of the mini Silithid bugs in Silithus and loot their Silithid carapace fragments. These fragments can be turned in 200 at a time for 200 reputation.
Bro, how long is this video? It's gonna take like 10 minutes to explain this quest, by the way.
Brood of Narsdormu, which must be raised to neutral. This equals about 42,000 carapace fragments in total before factoring in any reputation buffs that could have aided you when this is current, like the human diplomacy racial buff. Also, each Silithid was an elite in this time period, and they didn't drop very many. After this, the steps are all relatively dumbed down compared to the fragments, but still required you to enter instances and kill monsters on world boss level. What this means is to obtain this title, you needed an entire guild to actually help fund the efforts for this. Collecting the fragments completely alone was almost impossible, as the grind to do so was entirely too long before the event ended. So to speed things up, if you had an entire guild backing you up and handing you all the fragments, you could make the grind in time. The event, like stated a few times previously, is also a very limited time one. Not like an expansion or season's worth, however, but only a few weeks, if not less. Depending on your server's population density, an ever-persisting war effort would be going on in the background that required players to dump a numerous amount of crafting materials into it to open the gates of Encourage. As players slowly turn in the necessary materials for the war effort, this is the time anyone who wishes for this Scarab Lord achievement must complete their 32 quest-long grind. It also required both factions of each server to contribute, further encompassed by the fact that completing this objective will unlock the new raid of Encourage in the first place, which is what all WoW players really wanted anyway. More loot. So, with your guild's help during the week-long or so efforts, you have to complete the questline in time before it's gone forever. The guild being necessary further shows when you are required to journey to Blackwing Lair to slay Nefarian for the Red Scepter gem. Back in vanilla, these raids were designed around needing 40 total players, so even a bit shorter than that, you may never have had a chance. Then you need to go around the world of Azeroth as a whole and slay bosses equivalent to world boss in strength, and make sure your Scarab Lord target gets the progression they need. Once the war effort NPCs finally make it to Silphus, players who have crafted the Scepter of the Shifting Sands, the item in question for the Scarab Lord questline, can finally bang the gong to open the gates of the new raid instance. From here on, you now only have 10 hours to complete your quest in time, and also hit the gong with your own mallet.
That's wild.
Once you do so, you will receive the Scarab Lord title alongside one of the only legendary mounts in the entire game via the Black Harajin Resonating Crystal. To summarize this lengthy entry, you needed an entire guild support to actually get this title. And it was a limited time for maybe a couple of weeks at most, depending on your server during vanilla WoW. Even in classic WoW, when players knew 100% how this quest worked, it was still extremely rare to see a Scarab Lord walk around because of the insane amounts of help and grind presented. Literally only a few dozen, if not less, would get this title per server at the time. WoW even had less servers with this.
There was really a few dozen players per server? Wait. The way I understood it, it was one player got it per gong hit. I guess no, in Barney's guild there was like 10 people that farmed it, but that was like definitely not a dozen. I feel like it was probably closer. I mean, on some servers maybe there was a dozen. One per bong hit? No, gong. It was one per server, but I think if someone else wanted to do it, they could also do it within 24 hours or something, or maybe 10 hours. But you have to do all the quests, right? So it's like if you can't just run up and hit it. You have to do all of the quests to run up and hit it, from my understanding. That's a lot of bong hits. No, gong hits. Guys, gong hits. Maybe it worked differently in 2006 than it did in 2019. Maybe there was a different system. How many bong hits, bro? Anyway, if it was a few dozen per server, then there's still thousands of Scarab Lords, which would make it not as rare as like rank 1 titles. But if it's only one per server, and there's like 150 or 200, well, then it's still not as rare as rank 1 titles. All right, guys, rank 1 titles are the rarest mount in the game. There it is.
When it was current, so every server you see now in retail may not have actually existed back then. Similar to what was mentioned in previous entries, though, is that at least the new rank 1 titles are made each season. You will never see a player who missed out on this opportunity get it again. Only 0.032% of all accounts have this title, and it's usually safe to say that players who once got this title don't actually play the game anymore, and are so few in number, you may straight up never see them come around again.
I've only seen a few Scarab Lords like ever in the game. I've seen a couple, but when I see a Scarab Lord, it's like, damn, OG.
And that's the list. If you know of any other rare titles you may have missed, or have any ideas for future videos just like this one, please let us know down in the comments below.
Dang. All right, there it is, man. Good vid. I mean, we guessed Scarab Lord and rank 1 titles. A lot of these others I actually had no idea about. Some of them I was like that first one, I'm like, is that even that rare? Like, what the heck, bro? What's going on? Jeez Louise.